Hey everyone! So for my philosophical adventure project, I would like to introduce you to Grotius. Grotius was a political philosopher mainly interested in international law who lived in Holland in the early modern age, just as the Catholic and Protestant countries were in fierce battle for hegemony in Europe. Although Grotius was from a Protestant country and was Protestant himself, he disagreed with religious wars in general and believed that states had no right to impose religious thoughts on groups that did not believe in them. Grotius was a strong critic of the political realism school in international relations, usually represented through the text of Machiavelli. While Machiavelli believed that the law of the land was ultimately the law of the strongest and nations were justified in doing whatever was in their interest, Grotius believed that nations, like men, were bound by a set of moral codes. He believed that nations were only justified in armed attacks in cases of defense, the protection of their own rights, and some sort of punishment. Ironically, even though Grotius was a Protestant man, he ended up taking refuge in France, a Catholic country, from his own nation when he opposed a religious war based in the Netherlands. In France, he wrote his most famous book, De Jure Belli, which established some key concepts that are featured in international law to this day. Grotius was involved in many other aspects of international law and not necessarily only the idea of when it's right to fight war, but he also focused on the idea of how nations should wage war. So in the sense that he talked about how prisoners should be kept, he talked about how what nations should do with the goods that they seize from war. He talked against looting. He talked in favor of the protection of religious artifacts, and he talked about how to reinstate nations' wealths that were taken from them during the time of war. And much of his ideas came from his modern notion of property. So basically, he had this idea that everybody has an inherent right to property, and if something belongs to them and is taken from them, they have the right to fight for the restitution of that good or for some sort of compensation in case of it. And that was also another principle that really guided his notion of when nations should wage war in the first place, which is basically when their territory is under attack or when some of their rights has been violated in some sort. So these are some things that I have learned about Grotius. I really like studying him. I like to see how he contrasts himself from Machiavelli, which basically I thought believed in the notion that right is might. And while Machiavelli believed in that, Grotius believed that there are some principles and some moral principles that nations should abide by. And I really liked his justification for it because he believed that since nations are not some ethereal agents that are not bound by human laws, because nations aren't humans, he did not believe in that. That was Machiavelli's thought. Grotius believed that since nations are nothing but collective groups of people and people are bound by morality, then nations should also be bound by morality and moral principles. And for that reason, nations also have to follow a set of rules. So I hope you liked this video and I hope you liked the website. And thank you for everything. Bye-bye.